This is a symbol of perfect friendship among our united cultures.
We got it. Second time.
Note here that says do it.
We have it right there too, in case we forget. Thank you, people, board members, audience. Meeting called to order at 5:35, so 5:34. Roll call, please.
Emily Hunt Daly. Here. Robert Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Ron Ortiz.
Here.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Here. There's a quorum. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes? Mr. Perez, I'd like to offer a change.
Mr. President.
Members.
Mr. President, Board, I'd like to recommend that we adopt the agenda with the item C under 6, move to A. So we have review update on superintendent search as the first presentation. With that, I recommend the agenda as amended.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Emily Hunt Daly, seconded by Bob Hayes to approve the agenda as amended. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly.
Yes.
Robert Hayes.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. Mr. Perez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, recommend that we adopt the minutes of March 29th and April 4th, 2023 as presented.
Give you a minute. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I will make a motion to adopt the March 9th, 2023 minutes and the April 4th, 2023 minutes as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded by Emily Hunt Daly to approve the minutes. Motion made by Bob Hayes to approve, and seconded by Emily Hunt Daly to, as presented. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly.
Yes.
Robert Hayes.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes, motion carries. Recognition.
Sir, Mr. President, Board, it's always an honor to present recognition to our students, staff, community. Tonight, it's my honor to present an award to an employee that's been in the district for quite a while. I don't know the exact number of years, but I know he's been here for a while. And I hope that everybody here, I know that a lot of staff recognize that this person hits the ground running when he gets here, works basically unsupervised all day long. And the reason works unsupervised because he doesn't need to be supervised. This guy is he's a person who gets the work done and takes pride in his work, and everything that he does is quality behind it. You look at central office before, 3 years ago, and now after, virtually done by one person with outside of the finishing painting and stuff like that. The framing, you name it, was driven and orchestrated by our one of our maintenance guys here. And I have to say that whenever you see him working, you never see him on break. I don't think I've ever seen him on break, and I've seen him working a lot. He's been here, and he works at other places. He is he has many skills in his trade, from welding, construction, finishing, you name it. Anything that has to do with building, Mr. Gonzalez has it, and he does it well. And I think he's a humble person, and I think he's the kind of person that I don't think many people really know and recognize all the tremendous work that he has put into this district and continues to put into this district. So it is my honor to present an award to acknowledge that work to Mr. Eduardo Gonzalez.
Smile, Nick.
Way to go.
Steve.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else.
Board comments?
He's always working. I've always just said hello and that's all he'll say is hello and keeps working. Eduardo does a good job. Thank you, Eduardo.
Just the longevity of all our staff is preeminent for everything that we need to get done, and I'm very appreciative of Mr. Gonzalez and all our staff as well.
I thank you. I think you're a perfect example of old school. There's always not enough hours in the day to do work, and you keep getting it done. And we're really appreciative of all those, not just him, but all the staff that work 8 to 9 to 10 hours every day. It's important that we represent role modeling to our younger generations. And thank you, Eduardo, for that you bring to our school district. Thank you.
Yeah, you remind me of my grandpa. He stays busy, doesn't mess around. And that's really a work ethic that I want to follow myself in the years to come also, is to be like him and be like you. Congratulations, Leon. Thank you. Mr. Perez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board. There are no citizens to address the board this evening, no requests.
Okay. Mr. Perez, presentations.
Okay, under item 6, first presentation will be a review and update on the superintendent search.
Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Perez, staff, guests. Pleasure to be here with you again tonight, and
Thank you.
appreciate the courtesy of being moved up on the agenda. It's a gorgeous drive. It's nicer with the semis if you can do it before dawn. So, thank you. What I would briefly update you on is your own work. You guys have been awesome. You have already gotten your ad on the streets, worked diligently on the characteristics and qualifications that you wanted to best represent your district. And the application window is still open until April 27th. That's encouraging. We are looking at having, and besides that, you guys have turned in the names of the folks that you were nominating to be your representatives on the advisory committees that your approval process for the superintendent search contained. And my plan is to reach out to those folks with a welcome letter now, inviting them to an orientation meeting. We're looking at the 9th and 11th of May as orientation dates. Probably 7 p.m. on the 9th, and on the 11th, 2 sessions, one at 1 p.m. and one at 7 p.m. Ideally, we think we can accommodate people's work schedules twice with evening sessions, and maybe once in the middle of the day to catch as many folks as necessary. I would plan to be here personally for all of those. I've spoken to Dr. Archambault, and I believe that with Lorraine's help, we can use this room for tech support and have as many of the the committee members who can make it to each of those meetings. I don't know that Any one will be more well-attended than another. Dr. Paul, who by the way is here with us tonight, I should have mentioned that earlier. She's still recuperating from knee surgery, but hello, Dr. Paul.
Good evening, everyone.
She may join me in these sessions here, or she may find herself needing to Zoom in as well, but she'll be leading those sessions, and I'll turn it over to her shortly to kind of outline the content of that orientation and how we will go through the roles and responsibilities of those nominees leading up to their development of questions for their part of the interview process, as well as
Maybe in
how
the closet?
provide feedback to you after the interviews on that interview day. I've also spoken with Lorraine about logistics for the interview. And by the way, nothing that we have done thus far, I think, we delayed things a little bit at the front end to allow you folks a little more time to get together with your nominees. I don't think it's affected anything. In fact, whoever caught the conflict on graduation day, kudos to you, because I think it was a great catch. All we had to do was maybe push out these orientation meetings a little bit. But I have spoken with Lorraine about logistics, and I think we need at least 3 large rooms for those interview committees. You folks can certainly use your, is this room adjacent here what you use for executive session and such? I think that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think you already talked about placing.
Yes, I already have all the rooms set for who's gonna go where.
Okay, that's excellent. The one glitch, not glitch, the one thing we still needed to work out was a luncheon.
We've got that too.
Lorraine, you are on the ball. She's a keeper, by the way. I've been noticing that all.
She's cooking.
Cooking.
Really, I know that I was worried about having people go down the hill for a luncheon or a large space. Could I know what you've come up with?
We have a convention center about less than a mile away that we went ahead and we reserved.
Fantastic. Our thoughts on that, folks, is that it may be the only opportunity for yourselves and your colleagues from the committees to interact in a somewhat informal setting. They will get a quality time with 4 or so people, and there's 60 of them potentially. But it's gonna be a little bit different from, grabbing a donut and a cup of coffee in the morning, or the formality of an interview setting. And it's probably the best we can add on in that day. So I appreciate, Lorraine, that you've come up with that. Thank you. It's still gonna be a little bit of a hustle to get all of that into the one day, but we believe we can do it. So with that, I'm gonna take a deep breath, and I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Paul to kind of outline what that orientation meeting would be for your nominee. Yes, Dr. Ashenbaum.
I want to remind staff that and the public is that the names of the participants will not be released until you will inform me when you have received confirmation of their final interests.
That is great. And Ms. Sandoval told me earlier this evening that I think there may have been 1 or 2 duplicates. And so I would probably even delay until Thursday morning at least to send that letter of welcome out. And it'll be a template because of the dates and the nature of the invitation. Everybody's going to get the same messaging, but it will be individualized to the committee members because they're on 3 separate committees: the Tribal Community Leader Committee, the Staff Committee, and the Parent Committee. So, but I was planning to try to get that out as soon as tomorrow, but maybe, I'm not sure how you're gonna work out that overlap, but we did say that I certainly want to start with each of you having your 12 full contingent of nominees, but we did say, I think, that if somebody declined, we weren't gonna have substitutes. That was my recollection.
Is that-
Everyone else's.
What about duplicates?
I thought we would allow for a substitute there because no one could have known that overlap.
So then you identify what the duplicates are, or have you already done that?
Already did.
Has that already been taken care of?
I
Not
don't
yet?
think so. I just heard about it 20 minutes ago.
Okay,
Question.
all right, we'll just need to talk with the parties who created the duplicates.
So when will you narrow down the committee members?
I'm not narrowing them down, ma'am. All I'm saying is that apparently two of you on one of the committees or another invited the same person. And so neither of the board members who did that should be excluded of a fourth nominee. So I would hope that you could agree upon getting that extra person in the loop quickly.
Do you know which are the board members? Are they here?
One is,
Okay.
Which
Which one of us?
Okay, so, all right, we'll talk about that and try to resolve that.
okay.
But,
I think it's awesome that somebody is so highly thought of. I mean, that's one way to look at it.
so when I said that it's still confidential, it means that there could be a chance that someone may decline.
That is
And so
correct.
I'd rather have us wait in releasing the names until you have informed me that you have completed the confirmation and that they are available for public.
That is
Release.
correct. Now, if somebody chooses to announce to the world that they've received an
That's
invitation
up to
from
them.
us, we have no control of that.
Absolutely. Okay. Dr. Paul. Dr. Paul. then-
Good evening. Hi. Good afternoon, good evening, I guess, Mr. President, members of the board, guests. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going to happen next. Now that we have your nominees for all of the committees, as Mr. Sullivan mentioned, he will be reaching out to them. The next thing that happens once they've agreed is, number one, they're going to be invited to one of the 3 training sessions. And I know that a lot of people in a lot of different walks of life have done interviewing in the past. But as you know, in the public sector, we have to be very careful about how we go about conducting our business. And so we'll spend that time at the orientation meeting going over Fair Labor Standards Act and other pertinent regs and rules to make sure that everything that we do that day is legal and above board, and providing you with the best data that we can for your decision, to make your decision. Before you tonight, I have the committee input form, because some questions have about, well, how are you going to manage this? How are you going to handle all of this input? And there's going to be all these people and blah, blah, blah. So the system that we've come up with in the past, after lots of trial and error, is a form we're asking, and I'm sorry, board members, do you have those forms?
Just a moment. She'll get 'em.
Okay, judging by,
I didn't
Okay,
realize,
great.
Linda, maybe you can just kind of talk around it for a moment at least.
absolutely. So not only will we go over the legal aspects of the interviewing, we'll also go over the logistics, what's going to happen that day, how long that day will be. Once the board decides on the number of finalists, that will allow Tom and I to come up with a final interview schedule for May 23rd. So I don't mean to be evasive until then, but until we know how many finalists we're interviewing, it's a little difficult. But I assure you that the board will interview all the finalists, as will each of your advisory committee members. The advisory committees will also probably have a facilitator in there with them for the interviews. And the input format is going to be in writing. And so once you see this document, it's not a super secret document. It's a document that we've used for many years to gather input from your advisory committee. What we will do then, Tom and I, is as soon as the interviews are over that afternoon, he and I will compile those data, including comments, and have it ready for the board to either take home that evening and study, or take a look at the next morning when we meet, or the next day when we meet. So it's a fairly structured approach, but one that in the past we've got tremendous input from our staff, from our communities, from our leadership, all across the board. And so I would highly recommend that we use it. It's still marked draft because again, until we know all the questions, we won't know, we won't have a final draft of that. But as you can see, we're asking your advisory committee members to rate the candidates, not rank the candidates. So they're not going to come up with you with a recommendation for person X. You're going to see what strengths that person has and what opportunities for improvement that person may have. And the final question on the bottom of the second page, if you would flip to that right away, is if this is not your favorite candidate, still work with this person, knowing that the board has access to a lot more information than your committees will. We want to just make sure that if your favorite, the committee member's favorite person is not selected, that because of some other information that the board has, they can still work with them and be part of their transition into grants. So the interview questions, we'll be sending out a Survey Monkey to the advisory committee members, getting some input from them on the development of questions. The board reserves the right always to approve the final sets of questions that will be asked by each of the advisory committees. So all of that will be taking place very rapidly now in the background. As Tom said earlier, we don't have, our closing date is not until the end of the month. So we have a few to pull all of these pieces together and be ready to go on May 23rd. Actually, a lot of this will be done by May 2nd when we meet with you in person to narrow down the candidates from received down to your set of finals.
And what
Any
I would say
questions or
about that,
thoughts?
Before you get scared off by Dr. Paul saying the next morning, it really depends upon how difficult it is to narrow it down to your finalists. You know, you may quickly settle on 3 candidates. I'm just throwing that number out there, in which case it would be quite easy to resolve things that in that one day. But if you're really torn and you're saying, boy, there are 5 strong people in this final pool that we're reviewing, and I want to take a good look at all of them, it may be exhausting. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at the feedback that Dr. Paul just described, you may decide that you can't make the decision that night. You might want to take the things home with you and reconvene in the morning. We will tell the candidates to hang by your cell phones and be available. And we'll be glad to stay over that night and rejoin you the following morning to continue the conversation. I should also tell you that it's not often, but it can happen that the person that you want declines. I can give you 2 reasons that I've seen. Linda just experienced one. The spouse changed her mind after a candidate had been offered a position. Why didn't you talk about that first? And another situation I've seen is that the candidate had multiple applications out, and another one came in the interim. Well, may have been, or at least maybe more than likely a spouse, I don't, but things can happen. So you have to be prepared to maybe, that was why Linda was talking about, how do you feel about the other applicant, that second candidate? So again, maybe all easily wrapped up in that one day. You guys may all say, boy, that person wowed us, let's get that offer and snap that person up if we can. Or it may be really gut-wrenching and you may have to come back that next morning. Linda,
I think you captured it perfectly, Tom. Thank you. The only thing is, Lorraine, you and I need to work together to make sure that we advertise all of those meetings. We advertise, of course, the interviews on the 23rd, and then perhaps a special meeting if needed on the morning of the 24th.
and you may want to work with your attorney, Andy Sanchez, on the language about in and out of executive session and reconvening if you're doing something from Tuesday night to Wednesday, is it Tuesday, the 23rd to Wednesday morning, and things like that as well.
Question.
Oh, Emily?
If by perchance, say we select the 3 candidates, and then one going into the interview drops out, are we going to have the 4th or 5th candidate ready to step in as the 3rd candidate?
I don't know that we could do that because you would have to be after you have screened down from however many qualified applicants based on those, those qualifications that we established at the last meeting before we posted the ad. After we screened down, we're sending out invitations to come in. And those are gonna have some lead time for that person to make arrangements to get here. If somebody dropped out in between that lead time and the day of, it might be very difficult to try to substitute somebody. I would doubt we could do that. I'm sorry to say that.
So we would only have then end up maybe possibly with just two.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Boy, I hadn't given that much thought, to be honest with you. I don't know that I've seen that. I would hope it wouldn't happen, but I guess we better try to get 4 then, I guess.
Well, thoughts?
Well, the reason I'm asking is because in the news, I've been seeing a lot of districts looking for superintendents and doing interviews, not just here in New Mexico, but other states close to New Mexico. And so they might get a better offer somewhere else. And so that would cause us a dilemma if they drop out of our 3.
What I will tell you is that I worked with the Farmington district a year ago. They had 7 qualified applicants. 7. And I don't think they had 22 applicants total. And last year, the total between 2 years, there were like 60 districts in New Mexico that turned over. So the rotation was incredible. I think you guys are in better shape in terms of there being interest and fewer districts seeking superintendents this year than what was happening the last couple of years, to be honest. I think you're in a little bit better position than I've seen the last couple of years. I hope so. I don't think I'm blowing smoke. Dr. Paul, do you have any comment on that?
I totally agree. And, everything that we can control for, we do, but people are people and things happen at the last minute and you just have to roll with it. I mean, we didn't see that wife come into that town in New Mexico and saying, no way am I bringing my children here. And so they politely declined and moved on. And frankly, I'd rather know that now than know that in August so that we can react to it now and make different decisions.
I think the reason I asked that is because I think, Guy, you were part of the one we had to disqualify one.
Okay.
Because they didn't meet the minimum, and so that left us with just 4 or 3. I don't remember.
3.
So that did happen to us.
Yeah,
And
it does
and was
happen.
it was no fault of the board, but actually
No,
the fault
no,
of the
no.
consultant who
Well,
didn't
yeah, let's,
disqualify.
we'll address that when the time comes. Bob?
Just know, Mr. President, that, and we'll be in close contact with a group here that's going to help us make the selection. And, and it'd be up to us to say we want to see 4, 5, 6, 12, 18, whatever. It'll be up to this board to make that.
Let's be
decision.
flexible.
And we'll be flexible enough because, we are X amount of miles from a lot of places. And logistics and coming here, maybe changing their mind, and we shouldn't shortchange ourselves with regards to just limited pool. And that's all I'm hoping that we can find a qualified pool. We mentioned that as well. Qualified, limited, maybe the same thing, I don't know.
The only other thing I would add is that we're going to base everything we do from now on the plan that you approve. When we solicit input, when we develop questions, it's going to be around the qualities and characteristics that you took a good deal of time hashing out among yourselves. And, we're not going to deviate from that. We're not going to have the folks that, I hope that you were using the same kind of script when you invited these people, that we're not going to let them say, oh, no, wait a minute, we want to talk about this now instead of what you guys already approved. That's got to be clear, because we're going to reinforce it that way every time we talk to them from now on. Whether it's in the orientation meeting, whether it's during the interview day, or when we're asking them to provide that feedback to you, it's not going to be, wait a minute, we thought we were going to rank them 1, 2, and 3. No, that's not what the plan was, okay?
Well, yeah, I wanted to make sure that we were going to incorporate those characteristics that we had advertised.
Absolutely.
And those characteristics are essential.
That's the
When I,
driver.
when I look at the 20 questions here, they don't quite match those characteristics. So I need to be, we need to be assured that those characteristics are going to be key to the evaluation by the interviewers of the candidates, that they will be able to be able to provide us feedback based upon those characteristics that we see. And I'm assuming that's what you're saying, that you're gonna be.
Linda, you want to jump in on that? Can't hear you. You're muted.
Mr. President, members of the board, that's why that document you received today is marked draft, because we're not ready for it to be complete. As you said, we need to make sure that it's aligned with the characteristics that you've identified for a new superintendent. But I wanted to give you a flavor as early as tonight of how we're going to go about gathering input from 40 different people that will be joining us that day. So it is a lot, and we value their input, but we can't have it get away from us either. So we use a very structured process to make sure that you get the input you need and want, and yet it doesn't go off the rails.
I think if you can make an effort to see how you can incorporate or modify some of these questions, if
Will do.
there's a need, just to ensure that they are reflect, our characteristics are reflected in this. I think that's what you said you might
Yeah,
do.
look, I think you heard Linda say that you guys will get a chance to review and approve the questions before they're fine.
Okay. So, board members, have you had people knock on your door and say, I really think you ought to do this and do that? I have 2 phone calls persuading me to go and you gotta choose blank, such and such.
You got 3,000 kids, you only got 2 phone calls, that's not too bad.
Yeah, well, they can't find me. And so,
And-
even though I have 2 phone calls, 2 phones, what I'm saying to you is that we have to be careful about those things, because it is a very important position that this community has a stake in, these communities. And so we need to be cautious as to how we respond to those things, basically stating that we have a process and that we do not as a board get engaged in this process until it is our turn. And we are waiting for the community to contribute their feedback. And that's how it's going to occur. And we look forward to accomplishing our task successfully with a candidate that is qualified. In our board policy, it says we hire the best qualified person. And that's what we need to do. And we need to just tell them we are going to look for the best qualified individual for this district. And we hope that we assure them that we are going to have a process that is fair and objective and complete for our communities. So that's what I want to remind ourselves about. And that's also for the staff too, just refer them to her, but refer them to the process and say the process is there. It's online and everything else. What else?
I think that's as much of an update as we have for you folks right now, so
Thank you.
That's it.
you bet, thank you, appreciate you.
All right.
Dr. Paul?
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
luck and on recovery. Let's see if you jump up a little bit. I want to see that knee.
No, thanks. I'll tell my therapist tomorrow that you encouraged me to jump. Not yet.
I know. They want you to get up and walk.
Swimming instead of jogging.
Swimming. Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
be there. I'll be there, just not today or tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay. Mr. Pettis,
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board. Next up is an exciting, we just, several of our students and teachers and staff have just completed an exciting weekend of Skills USA.
Really?
And they're here
Great.
to present.
Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board. Skills USA is one of the career technical student organizations that we have attached to our CTE classes. And the Skills USA competition for this state was held this past weekend. And so our students and their advisors went the 13th to the 15th to Albuquerque. And so we have our three sponsors here. And before we let the students share and before we let everybody else, I just wanted to recognize, you guys can come up, Ms. Seneca, Jesse Rivera, and Ron Gonzalez. Taking a group of students overnight is not an easy task, and these ones took a total of 28, I believe it was, students to Albuquerque. this
really? Oh, poor things.
I've done more.
Our students participated in video news production, in public speaking, in carpentry, and individual welding, in metal fabrication and welding sculpture. What am I missing? And CPR and first aid. So I'll let them speak first and then we can let the.
Yeah,
the
talk to
students-
us.
I just want to say that, you know, I'm really nearing the end of my teaching career, hopefully, not that I love teaching, but I also, you know, I'm getting old. This has been really probably the best 2 years that I've ever had as a teacher, and I think part of it is my own selfish getting to do what I really love. My passion always was journalism.
Yeah.
Before I became a teacher, and you just can't get paid doing that. So unfortunately, well, fortunately for students, unfortunately for me, and whatever, you know, I love teaching just as much. And I can say that part of that is just that I'm getting to do what I want and love. But we are forging some relationships at Grants High School and at Laguna Acoma High School that are going to prove to give more fruit than what you're hearing about today. I just know that. And I know that because just this weekend alone reminded me of why I committed to teaching anyway. And that is that you put kids in positions to succeed, and you believe in them, and you push them, and you hold them accountable, and they will respond, just like our students did this weekend. So it's been quite a ride, and all I can say is I'm just so happy to see kids. The feeling that you get from seeing kids be proud of their work, there's nothing like it. And I'm just on a high since all that has happened. And so it's just a great way to close out the year, honestly, for me personally.
Daniel, it was definitely great.
Yeah.
Watching those kids walk in to their competitions nervous as possibly could be. I had one student who was like, nope, I'm not doing it. He was ready to go, and he said, no, I can't do it. And I told him, no, you're gonna get in there, you're gonna do it. He got done, and the smile on his face, and he walked up to me and told me, thank you for making me do it, you know. And he was thinking about going off to a different district, and we got back Saturday night, and he told me, he says, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying here because of skills. I'm not going to a different district. I'm staying here because of this program. And you want to talk about a tearjerker? I mean, this is my first year teaching, and
Really?
yes, and yeah, I couldn't have asked for anything better than the compliments we got on our students from our district, from other individuals, and just saying how well behaved they are. Watching some of them completely 2 weeks before just step up to the plate and say, I'm gonna do this and I wanna take care of it, and it's just been amazing. I can't thank you guys enough for supporting us, and just love it.
Guazi, Grand Samoa County. Wahiname Duni Shrui Hanu Shrak Washtista. I am a member of the Laguna, and I am alumni of Laguna Acoma and of NMSU Grants. I took part in Skills USA along with him as well. That was one of the few years that I felt like I achieved a lot, and it's very exciting and it's very rewarding to be able to bring that to our students as well. This is my second year in teaching as a welding instructor and metalworking instructor. It's my first year as a Skills USA advisor. So this is all brand new to our campus. We're the first, we became a chapter this year or in November. And with that, these students really stepped up as leaders. It took a lot for them to be able to stand up in front of people and speak and be able to start developing some leadership skills, developing some their abilities to talk for public speaking. Some of our students had never taken part in school or student activities before, and they're really excited to get into some kind of activity that piqued their interest. We have some student athletes, we have some students who are not interested in athletics, but they are very interested in career technical education. Ever since we started with our Skills USA chapter, I've seen a huge spark in interest in the students, not just for welding, not just for metalworking, but for learning how to be their better selves, learning how to be able to develop skills that they already had, just didn't know that they had. One of the biggest things that I've noticed so far in my students here today is the level of confidence and of pride that they have. Before we were going and they were a little excited, this is cool, this is something I've never done before. After the competition, they just beamed with confidence. They had this different demeanor to them. When we returned to school, some of them were ready to start on the next project, ready to start making their own projects. One of the boys, he came in and said, next year is gonna be my year, I'm gonna take nationals. So we're very excited for him, and we're very excited for all of our students to be able to have all of these new experiences. And we thank you all for your investment in us, not just financially, but the support that you give us on a daily basis and year to year. We hope that this continues on, and we're very excited to see what these students can bring to our school, to our district, and most of all to our communities.
And they are definitely ready for next year. You have no idea. If we had to compete again tomorrow, they would be already ready. And they're ready to go, and they're not going to go compete. They're going to win. They have it in their heads that we are gonna go back next year and we are just gonna completely take over.
The kids were asking for score sheets the second they were finished because they wanted to know what to do better next. And like they said, we got compliments on our kids all weekend about how well behaved they were at the hotel and at the Crown Plaza itself. And as a whole, that's a big group. We were one of the biggest groups. There were 740 students participating. And now we get to show them really fun stuff. So, go ahead and go to the next slide. This was our group from Grass High School. We have some of our students here.
Where?
In the back.
Okay, come on, let's go see him.
The next picture is a picture of the students from Laguna Acoma High School.
Yeah, if you did it then, you can do it here. So, piece of cake. This is nothing.
This is a small group.
Okay,
This is
come
a
on,
very
come on.
small group.
Very small group.
Is that right?
We had, like they said, 28 of them. We have some right now that are at a baseball game. We were gonna try to get
We were
them.
gonna zoom them in, but they're already in there.
Yeah, they're already at a baseball game. We had a lot of student athletes this weekend. So.
Go ahead and go to the next one. This is one of our student athletes who's playing baseball right now. Andres Lopez is a senior this year, and he took bronze in carpentry. This kid worked in carpentry from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock. He's sunburned for a kid, and then he went to Valencia, played his baseball game, and then they brought him back. And
And
so-
won. They won.
They won, yeah. This is Deontay Wright here with us today. And he got silver with his sculpture. And you have it with you,
Did you
don't
bring
you?
it?
He did.
Let's see.
You want to see it, because that's.
That looks
We
cool.
asked him to bring it, but we
Pretty
also
snazzy.
warned him not to let any of you talk him out proud of it.
Good in here.
Don't listen to him.
Yeah, don't listen to her.
Make sure you make big bucks.
Man.
And thank you to Mom who rushed it to us over there.
You should put that on the website.
Tell them how long it took you.
3 minutes.
Like 50 hours, I believe.
50 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already saw it on Facebook and I was showing it to everybody.
I was trying to share everything on Facebook.
Exactly.
We have Brandon's mom. And Brandon did individual welding, and he is from Grants High School, and he brought home bronze as well.
Really?
Gold next
Great.
year, right, Brandon?
What did you do?
What do you mean?
So we just had a lot of tests on different types of welding, so
Yeah.
we had to run some MIG, TIG, arc welding, and then torch cutting. So they gave us like blueprints and just pieces of metal
Right.
and asked us to build this, and then we had certain criterias for our welds.
Well,
On the spot, can you do this type of thing?
Tell them what all you want for getting bronze.
So bronze, they gave me 2 new auto darkening hoods, a new welding bag, and then a pair of gloves. And then I got 2 scholarships to do different like
That's what we want here, John.
All right. That's great.
What did Mr. Riley do?
Counselor, what did you win?
I got a welding jacket and some welding gloves.
Okay.
And
Great.
then this is a picture of our video news production team, which received bronze. I don't know if any of them are here from this team.
No, they are not,
unfortunately. This team also won bronze, and we were very happy to take one of those medals away from Centennial, who usually
Really?
sweeps this category, so Mr. Gonzalez.
Centennial uses sweeps, maybe, most of the bronze?
Oh, I see. I see
Not
that.
anymore.
Not for
Not
me.
anymore. Done.
So were there big high schools there?
Very good.
Oh,
Wow.
Centennial's pretty big.
Everything we heard was Tops, Centennial, Deming, you know.
Yeah.
Like my carpentry teams or individuals, they were competing right along with colleges also. So they were right there, they were doing the same exact project. They were scored differently, of course, but they were right there with each other, so it was great watching.
All of the welding also had college level blueprints that they had to interpret as well.
Do any of you guys want to say anything about your experience?
ready to go again, right? Come on.
It was a good learning experience for my leadership skills and my technical skills. I'm striving to get that gold next year, of course.
Mhm.
And I want to pursue the technical side of welding.
Okay, hands up, who's going next year? That's what I want to hear.
We have some more pictures too.
Some more?
Of our students. They also had workshops for the students to do some different workshops that they attended, and then advisors attended different workshops at the same time. You can see how big it is there with all of our students, the opening.
Wow.
This group, I think we have Jaylene here. They competed in, you want to tell them about your competition?
So we made a promotional bulletin board for the theme Our Time Is Now, and we used the tree as a symbol of the roots being our teachers, showing our generation of students the different skills and trades in the schools, and as the branches and the leaves as the students taking over those skills and those trades.
Wow.
And they also built their own bulletin board.
Who's this?
Is Elijah Charlie? He's not with us right now.
In baseball.
Something.
No.
Doing his homework, of course.
And then we just wanted to show, my dad sent me these pictures, and this is Jesse Rivera. He competed at skills for my dad at MSU. So we wanted to show the students that it goes full circle. And so he was looking for pictures of Seneca too, and I didn't get any in time. So My dad's been doing skills for almost 40 years, and so these guys have gone through his program, and I think it's a testament to skills itself that now 2 of our teachers are skills advisors for our students.
I was sitting at dinner with them the other night, and I told them I probably would have never finished college if it wasn't have been for skills. I went because I was, skills is what put me through college. You know, and I had a crazy idea at the beginning of the year to go and compete at skills, and everybody jumped on board, and I think we're gonna turn this whole thing around.
Great.
Come and get the bug and just keep on going.
They have the bug. You guys got the bug, you're in.
Okay. Names, didn't hear them all. Introductions.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes.
Brandon Small, Grants High School, I'm a junior.
I'm Sarah Alger, Grants High School junior. Kayleen Moran, Grants High School sophomore.
Santiago Curtis, I go to Grants High School, I'm a sophomore.
John Torelli, and I'm a junior.
Matias Aragon, I'm a sophomore at Laguna Acoma.
Jerome Pino, I'm a sophomore at Laguna Acoma.
Great.
We have time.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
Yeah, this is. And parents.
I'd just like to add, you know, I think, I just need to point out that it's really, what makes me really proud of this, with any successful group, you know, with athletics or academic successes, these coupled with character, and just when you mentioned that the group was acknowledged for being respectful, and the group was acknowledged for being well-behaved, I think that just makes us so much better, and I encourage you all to keep that character as part of all your successes.
One more thing, Brandon had an experience where he shared, you know, share that? You shared some of your tools during your.
Oh, well, so like during it, we went to the the cutting torch section, and like most of the kids didn't bring their striker with them. So, and I brought mine, so I was just letting them use it and stuff like that.
Thank you. Nice.
Good character.
That was good.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's cool. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super. You guys are great.
You're giving that away, right?
I don't think he's actually an alternate for nationals. So if the goal decides that they don't want to go, then he gets to go to.
Darn it.
So we're waiting patiently for a phone call.
Okay, let's adjourn.
Can't top that, Mr. President.
Yeah, there's no way. Okay.
I have 2 comments to make before I start. Once again, I have to object. Presentation.
Following.
And it's just not good for my ego. And the other thing that's not good for my ego is I have to be sick in order to have a voice as deep as these guys have. Yeah. I handed out some materials for you, so we're gonna do a deep dive into this budget so that you are completely aware of everything that we did in terms of proposing this budget. We do have some timelines. Fortunately, you don't have to approve it today. We have until June 20th, but we want to put it on the agenda for the next meeting so that we do still have to submit this to the PED on Thursday. That's our deadline. But we can always make changes if there's something that's very, we have to definitely want to make sure that we can cover or change. We can do a bar and change that later, but we still have to submit this budget in this form, in draft form on Thursday. So, I'm hoping that you will appreciate everything that's in this, and we're gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna share with you first the big document that says revenue, right? I'm gonna share with you revenue. This is all of our sources of income
for the operating budget. We are not going to cover any of the detail for the state and federal funds. What the PED is interested in is our operating budget, our transportation budget, and our food service budget. Those are three things. So we're gonna walk through the operating budget. This is the largest of them all and has most components. So I'm just gonna walk you through line by line. Number one is cash. So cash, we move forward money that we have in the bank or have appointed at based on our audited financials at the end of last year was $15,300,000. That comes straight off of the audit. If you were to look at the balance sheet on the audit, you would see this exact same number. That's the number we use carrying forward. I'm sharing with you on line one that we projected in 22-23 to have 7.4 million, almost 7.5 in the prior year. We also had 9.9. So this is a very healthy amount of cash to carry over. And I'm going to share with you why that's going to be important for us moving forward with all the various projects and all the issues that we're going to be facing in the coming year. Restricted cash is just a small amount of money, very, very small, infinitesimal when you look at the scope of the budget. It's money that might be given to us for a specific purpose. We can only use that money for that specific purpose, and we don't like to take that because we don't like obviously a big balance because then it just restricts it too much. So we're projecting $2,900. Ad valorem taxes, this is the money that we collect on from the taxes to cover our bond and debt. So this is the money that comes in from the county. We share a small portion of that with Camado, but this is how much we're expecting to get in. Investment income, that's line D. Let me share with you what we're doing here. So the state allows us to carve out a certain portion amount of our operating fund and our bond fund and invest it and actually look at investing, making money off of this. So we did that. We ran it by the finance committee back in December or November. We are working with Morton Capital. We have realized in 2 months and 10 days a $78,000 gain in the amount of money that we put into in this. We moved over, $7 million from the operating account and $4 million from the bond account. So when you realize those gains, we do what's called a sweep. Every month, we just put that money, the interest back into the accounts that they came from. We can't move them to different accounts. We have to put them back in. So we anticipate in 12 months, we would have a gain of $424,524 just based on the performance that we put together and the actuals that we are experiencing. This is, again, very important because as we move into building the new schools, we're going to find that we're going to need every dollar here because of the inflation. And so this is just also a very prudent use of our funds. The state tells us we can't put too much money in there. We have to make sure that we have enough. The bank or the capital says, oh, put in, X number of dollars, but we don't want to, we wanted to be very conservative. We didn't want to overdo it. We could make more money, but then I would have a stomachache trying to figure out if we're going to make payroll without sweeping the money back in. So we didn't want to do that. We just want to be prudent. Later on, if the board is more not risk averse, we might continue something, but I don't think that's a prudent move right now. So then line, you can see line E, F, and G. H is our rental. We have a little bit of property. Line I is private donations that come in. We don't have a lot of that. I'm going to take you all the way down to line N. N is our state equalization guarantee. That's the amount of money divided by 12 months that the PED gives us to operate. Most of that money goes into salaries and benefits. In fact, 71% of that goes into salaries and benefits for those people who are paid out of the operational fund. Many of our employees are paid out of state and federal funds, the title money and that kind of thing. Most of our employees are paid out of the operational fund. Our goal was to make sure that we were below 85%. And because you may recall a couple of board meetings ago, I predicted that our unit value, the amount of money that we get per unit based on the type of student and the number of students that we have was going to be close to $5,600. It was actually $6,241. That's the number it says, I can't remember. I have it here. Anyway, so that was very generous, thankfully. There's also some various programs in there that will affect that. So I'm going to also point you to this document that says, here are the changes mandated by the legislature. This is page 1. This is what we sent to our employees to inform them ahead of time of what's going to be happening next year with things that affect their wages. Number 1 is a 1% increase to help compensate for increases in the health premiums, and then couple that with a 5% additional increase for all employees. So that's a 6% increase across the board. Every single employee must achieve a minimum of a 6% increase in their wages for next year. So I gave examples of how that would affect, for example, a teacher, a custodian, a secretary, that kind of thing. The other thing is we're a licensed educational assistants, and there is language in the bill that identifies who those particular job classes are. They'll move from minimum to a minimum annual wage of $25,000. You might remember, I shared with you that the average wage right now for an EA is $18,500. So that's going to give them a significant increase, $6,000 some odd dollars, a very huge increase. However, some of that will be mitigated by some of the increases that they'll be facing in their ERB contribution. The next page, on page 2 of that document, shows that we have a 1%, the employer now must add 1% more to the contribution to ERB. So out of our wages, the employer pays 18.15% now, or will in July, for contribution to ERB. So it sounds like a little bit of percent, but when you add up 550 or so employees, we're talking major dollars. So this generous amount that we received in our SEG, so it's going to be going towards that as well as the increases. So I also gave some scenarios there so that employees would understand how this impacts them. It's going to impact the employees who now are contributing 7.9% because of their wages, will now go to 10.7%. So they get an increase, but also more of that money is going to be going to their personal ERB retirement fund. So that's going to be a hit for them, just so that they can be aware of what that looks like.
The buildings are, and I know it's a hit and it's structured however it's done, but those are their dollars anyway, period, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please
the money
know
that,
I know it's coming out of the check, but it is their money.
It is their
I'm in
money.
the same boat, same thing.
correct.
The other question, and I know you probably don't, no one has control over health insurance. It just needs to really hit into the ones with lower salaries, that they have to pay that amount per paycheck. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel somewhere? No.
No, that's the next one here. Let's see, no, that's on page 3. Skip to page 3 and then we'll go back to page 2. So the health plan contribution, there is some change. We have 4 tiers right now. If you earn under 15,000, the employee will contribute 20% towards the premium. If they earn between 15 and 20,000, it's 25%, and 20 and 25,000 is 30 and then 35%. They're going to 3 blocks instead of 4 tiers. So any employee earning under 50,000 will now contribute 20,000. So that will help some folks who were contributing 25,000 in that second tier. That will give them some relief. And then those who are earning 50 to 60,000 will contribute 30%, and those over 60,000 will contribute 40%, so a little bit of a hit for those individuals.
Except for the ones earning 60K, they actually go up by 5%.
Correct, that's how they fund the other two tiers, right? So, what's important about this is that the NIMSIA rates went up 7.75% for those on the high option, and, I think it was like 2% or so on those on the low option. The high option means it's the richest plan, right? And they pay more. And it's gonna be 7.75% this year and for the next 4 years. So it's compounding to over 35% rate increase from where they were now to 5 years from now. So that's quite a hit.
So in essence, they robbed from Peter to pay Paul.
Yes. So let's go back to page 2. Page 2 at the bottom of the page shows a change in the responsibility factor. Responsibility factor is how the PED computes what the minimum salary for administrators will be, school site administrators. It's based on the minimum salary for a tier 3 teacher, which is $70,000. And the element that you can see, I won't read them all, you can see what the minimum salaries are for the principals now. So here's an important thing to know. These minimum salaries for many of our principals does not equate to 6%. So we actually have to bring them up to 6% because the PED mandates every employee must get a 6% raise. When you compute some of these salaries for what our existing administrators are earning, it does not come out to 6%. The highest, I think, came out to just under 4%. So they'll be getting a bigger boost other than this, which is great because it's funded through the SEG. That's what we want, right? And so that's the things that are affecting that wage and salaries. Other things that are going to be affecting the SEG are the change in the hours for instructional hours, as well as the addition of a couple of things. So right now, we pay National Board Certified Teachers. They get a stipend at the end of the calendar year, and that stipend is based on the unit value in place in January. They've been averaging about $7,500 a year for a teacher who has a National Board Certified certificate. They don't have to do anything after they earn that, they just get that stipend. It's funded through the SEG, but now the PED has expanded that to anyone who has a National Board certification that's listed on the NBC website. They could include counselors. So we have already identified one counselor who qualifies for that. And based on the unit value that was in place in January, which is $5,500, I anticipate that person, those people, employees will get probably about $8,500 stipend this December. Also funded through the SEG. The other things that are funded through the SEG are after-school programs that will be available for there's a new push on intervention programs. We're wanting to implement that, which means we want to offer 2 hours of intervention programs every day or however many days in every school, which will also include transportation for that student and a snack or meal for that student as well. So those are the kinds of things that will impact that. I'm gonna share with you, so that's the revenue side, and then you'll see on line,
Just one question.
Yes.
Where's PILT in all this?
Where's what?
PILT,
I don't know what that is.
PILT, the annual taxes for the windmills.
Oh, that's impact aid,
Impact aid?
yeah, that's in here as well, you'll see that. What we call that pilot, that's why. Thanks.
It's many versions.
Yeah. So there's the Forest Reserve, there's impact aid, and you know what I'm missing from here is the $341,000 that comes from the windmills. Thanks for reminding me. The indirect costs are the flow through, that's something we get back from state funded, federal funded programs. Impact aid is line P, you can see we're budgeting 2.1 million. And so you can see right now, our revenue is projected to be $66,203,000. which is a $20,000 increase from $20 million, $20 million more than what we received last year. Fairly rich. So then when you add our state and federal funds, you'll see that we have a total overall budget of $106,758,000.
Mr. Mullenhour, do you accept that change, the 20 million you're talking about, do you expect that to decrease in years?
No.
No?
And the reason I don't is we had a meeting with the secretary and some other folks from the LFC, the Legislative Finance Committee, and the LASC, the Legislative Education Study Committee. And they did a 10-year forecast in New Mexico economy. They anticipate a steady amount of revenue coming in from oil and gas revenues that will sustain this for the next 10 years, as they're saying, unless there's a major recession of some sort. So being the optimistic person I am, I'm saying, yes, we're gonna have some of this money coming in that we can sustain that. It may not last for very long as they begin to transition out of fossil fuels, those kinds of things in the state. But for the next 10 years, we have to take advantage of it and make hay while the sun shines. Let's go to the other sheet, which is the expenditures. And that's gonna also, I have a little cheat sheet for you here, it's a one-pager. It says detailed explanation on some budget items, not all of them, just some of them. And I won't go through all of them for you here. However, I walked you through the payroll and benefits being 33 million. There's no more K-5 and extended learning time, so that goes away next year, even though this year we will be having those 10-day programs and paying the employees the 3% premium, those who work that 10 days this fiscal year. Line 3 is discretionary income. It sounds like it's just money that we willy-nilly can do whatever we want. That's not really the purpose of that. The purpose there is for us to provide programmatic offerings related to response to the Yazzie Martinez interventions, to supplement needed funds due to inflation for capital not covered by bond proceeds. Let me explain that. So when we went out to the voters back 3 years ago, we said we were gonna build Mesa View and Blue Water, some other smaller projects, and our share was gonna be X, Y, and Z of this, and this 10 million is gonna cover our share of that. As you know, when we went out for the Blue Water construction, that came in instead of at $9 million, it came in at 17, almost $18 million. So our current share, 24%, is going to be significantly higher at 18 million than it would be at $9 million. The same goes for Mesa View, which we projected to be somewhere along the lines of $27 million, and our share of that was going to be 24%. The PSCOC said, well, so we're going to have another round of lowering your share. That's what they told us at the spring budget workshop. However, I'm not good at math, but I was good at this math. So we were at 24%. Then we received a memo that said, moving forward for any new project, your share will now be 36%. So that meant that anything we already didn't have in the pipeline, our share was going to be 36%. And then after I picked up Mr. Perez from the ground, we started talking with PSCOC and said, why is that so high, right? And it's because we're not heavily leveraged, meaning we don't have a lot of debt, like our neighbors to the west, who leverage all of their bond money and barely have 28 cents available to them in bonds because they're so highly leveraged. So their share, they say, well, you obviously don't have money to spend, so your share is going to be much lower. Right now, I think it's 18% or something ridiculously low. So they said, well, we're going to lower that down. In legislation, they said 1/3. What's going to come down 1/3 after July? I said, great. Well, 24% to 36%, and then you cut 36% by 1/3. Where are we? We're back to 24%. Unless the next round before, which they promised there'll be another round sometime in June, which will hopefully lower. They didn't say lower, they said they were going to change. So I have no idea what ours is going to look like. Hopefully they'll lower it back to something closer to 24%. So that going into the next fiscal year, we can get 1/3 of that knocked off and get a better share.
In the meantime, the materials and supplies are constantly.
Right.
So it pays
So-
more to be in debt.
I'm sorry?
So it pays more to be in debt.
Apparently, it's not good to be prudent.
I was gonna say, if you're frugal, you get penalized.
Yes.
Well,
No good deed.
That's exactly it. So our strategy, so our concern moving forward is that our share, Ron did some calculations based on another project that got funded in Gallup of a similar size with Mesa View. That instead of 27 million, would be closer to $55 million. So our share of that's gonna go up, which means that the money that we bonded for that we went out to the voters and said, hey, we want you to help us build these buildings, these new schools, that money will be eaten up in no time. Plus, we're gonna have to dig into some of our reserves, which will be some of this discretionary funds, as well as some of the money that we're putting into reserves, right? We can also use impact aid for that, but we're gonna have to basically cobble the money together once we have a better understanding of what we can afford and what our share is going to be, right? So I don't want to be Chicken Little and tell you that the sky is falling, but I do want to tell you that we are trying to be prudent to make sure that we have enough cash to manage these buildings, because when we go out to the voters in November for the second bond that we're gonna be offering, most if not all of that money will be dedicated to Mount Taylor Elementary School, although we will have some smaller projects in that, but we're gonna have to dip into some of those funds unless that rate goes down and we can have a little bit more money. Alright, so that's one concern. That's why, so if you're asked, why did you put so much money into this discretionary fund? Well, I'm thinking, as I told Mr. Perez, well, probably 6 million of that is gonna be used for holding on to in case we need to dip into it for the capital, right? And the other 6 million will be used for programmatic issues related to interventions, responding to Yazi Martinez, all those things, even though we don't have those mapped out yet. If you look at our strategic plan, we have the need for that. So we wanted to make sure we had enough funds and enough breathing room so that when the team gets together to talk about what special ed needs there, what we need for other things, we'll have enough funds to mitigate that. All right, whew, that was a lot, right?
Okay, stop for a second. Board, when he's talking about the Ozzie Martinez interventions, remember the budget is the board's purview. So we need to be aware of what it is that we're going to do when we're trying to address equity issues. In other words, if there are needs that the students have and there are things that we need to do, we need to be fully aware of what it is that we are planning on for this coming school year. And not just let the administration just go and do it. We gotta think about it and be persuaded, or be informed, and consider what is it that we wish to do to deal with with addressing needs of students, along with trying to build some buildings. Sounds like even though we're having revenues for the next 10 years that are gonna rise, we're still gonna be short.
Potentially.
The way things are working out. Okay.
All right, thank you. Referring to line 7, the SRO this is an MOE that we are working on with the county to provide 2 deputies, one for Grants High and one for Lambs, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And so this will cover all of their expenses, their training, their annual expenses. This would be for full-time deputies on here to provide safety and security for our schools. Moved into line 11, cash reserves. Last year, we allocated 5 million. This year, we're allocating 5.5 million. You can see the explanation here that we want to continue the practice of funding reserves, which is very important. This amounts to just over 12% of our operating budget. So if you remember in the LFC audit, they said, the board or the administration should have a goal or a practice of carving out X percent of the budget for that, whether high or low. And so we've been operating at 10% right now. And because of the additional stress in terms of the capital, we just we moved it to 12%, just to cover for that. Line 14, subcontracting ESS. Our previous budget was $950,000. We spent that almost before Christmas because of the demand for substitutes, the increased amount of professional development. So the state wants us to provide a lot of professional development, taking teachers out of the classroom. When we do that, we have to replace them with substitutes so that learning still happens. That's putting extra burden on that. And it's going to continue as well because of the amount of hours that the state is now mandating for professional development for teachers moving forward. In addition, we also staff some persistently vacant positions with long-term subs that we were able to fill in with certified teachers. And then on top of that, we have a desire to move some of our, all of our coaches, athletic coaches, and those people who receive stipends to ESS for this reason. If I am a classified person earning an hourly wage, I'm not allowed to go and coach because we can't keep track of that person's hours, and they would be overtime, it would just be exorbitant. So we don't have the opportunity for people who are unclassified staff to coach anything or to be anything other than doing their job. This would, and when we move them when we move these coaching and these other temporary jobs, they're temporary and seasonal, I call it, right? Temporary and seasonal roles, that means that they become employees of this private company. They no longer are bound by our need to control the number of hours because they're not working for us, they're working for ESS, even though they might be stationed at the football game, for example. So we added some more money. Those stipends, by the way, contribute, they amount to over $400,000 a year in stipends for all the various and sundry class sponsors, club sponsors, athletic coaches, those kinds of things. So if ESS is unable to accommodate that, then we'll put that money back into the salaries and wages.
So does that also include like security guards, what else?
No, the security guards are just gonna be paid overtime because not every security guard is dedicated to every single game, for example. It would be like if I was a custodian and I wanted to be a coach for basketball, I'm committed to that season for that particular time. They're paying a stipend, you don't tell them how many hours they're gonna work. However, if I'm a security guard and I say, and the principal says, hey, I need you to come over here and help with this game for security, then I just get paid additional hours. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Other things I will then point you to are the at-risk line 15. This money here, we added another $100,000 to provide additional services for at-risk programs that are not provided through the AIR funds, the At-Risk Intervention Response Fund. Our money, this year, we received a substantial amount from that fund, so we're down to $20,000 next year, and will be dedicated only to Laguna Acoma Middle School. This year, Cubero, San Rafael, and Laguna Acoma Middle School all received funds, but the allocation for next year will only go to Laguna Acoma Middle School and will only be $20,000. So fine arts, again, yes, sir.
Line 15 you're talking about. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. It says increased funding to address needs of at-risk students. Okay, and it says SE on expand services. And you're saying that projected is 625,000? Is that what I'm saying?
625,000 is what we're budgeting.
And what is that, what are you proposing that go to again?
Well, so for example, this year, in the AIR funded programs, the schools came up with very creative ideas to intervene for math, intervene for field trips, intervene for testing, showing people how to do testing, help me, Raina, all the different things. I mean, it was just a tremendous amount of opportunity that students who are identified as at risk or who volunteered to be part of these programs would never have received had they not been part of it.
Sometimes some of our funding is a little restrictive in how it can be used, and these are less restrictive. And so they were able to be more creative for some of the things that they did with students. Like Steve said, getting them ready for some of their tests and test taking strategies. They had an evening where they got together and they provided some snacks and stuff for the kids, and they did it with the families. They showed them how to take tests and encouraged them to do well. And just things like that,
Right.
that are a little bit different than what we can normally do with some of the funds that we
So
already have.
which schools benefited from that?
The only ones that had it available were Sandra South Rivero and Laguna Acoma.
This would expand it to all schools. This would be available for all schools, including counseling services, things like that, things that address social and emotional learning issues with families and students, which came out in the surveys that we did when we were looking at ESSER.
So, Mr. Pettis, when the various external agencies are calling for accountability with respect to equity, is this one way in which we're doing that?
Definitely. So, the SEL and the CLRE, as Raina stated, it's all evolving. There's not like, we haven't nailed down a dollar figure to a single activity. This is is an amount that's going to help us grow the work that TSEA is doing with SEL and CRLE. This is the funds that's gonna help us move from 2 schools that are being formally trained with SEL, CLRE, to all the schools. So it's part of an evolution to expand the beginning of the SEL and CLRE work that we've started.
So this is the kind of thing I was talking about, is that the external agencies and, you know, the stakeholders are wanting to know, what else are you doing for the at-risk populations? And so we know that we have a basic program. That's some teachers. We gotta do that. And there's a complaint from the LFC that we had downsized our teacher pupil ratios. And so, which I thought was what we're supposed to do, was to have a lower ratio, so that teacher can be able to address them. But anyway, that's a different story. So we're trying to figure out how best to address equity issues, not only through the main basic program, which is the assignment of teachers to schools, and but we also are doing it through I guess that one, and I think you said another one, and we're going to do that for all schools. So we need to know, what is it that we're going to do? Not tonight, but we need to know and feel that we understand when the agencies that are looking at us and ask us as a board, what are you doing? We can say, this is what we're doing. Yeah, so just trying to make sure we are able to understand that whole conversation about addressing needs, and where we can add, put a little more bang for the buck on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Line 16 increases money for fine arts supplies for that program, so that can continue to grow. Line 27, a little bit more money in HR to help with the electronic applicant tracking program that they're implementing, as well as recruitment expenses and just regular office supplies.
We've been getting great innovations presented to us, like today. It's exciting. And I think that's been going on throughout the year. We've been having kids come here and they're showing what they're doing, and where the schools are doing new and different things. Welding at the grants at Laguna Acoma, we saw the other 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. How are we paying for those?
How are we paying?
Yeah, there must be sources of funds to support all these exciting things that we're doing and over and above regular classroom instruction.
We're using the remainder of our ESSER funds for that for the next year. And then planning for the following year, how we're going to absorb that into the SCG. Right now, we're using the ESSER funds to buy equipment, to establish programs, training, things like that, so that it's like, think of it as investment in a new business. That's what we're using that for, and we're doing that as rapidly and as strategically as possible, so that when those money potentially dry up, and I say potentially because there's also other funding in the pipeline, but we don't want to count on that. You know, as Ricky Ricardo says, you don't want to cross your bridges until your chickens are hatched. We're not planning for that, so we want to find out how we're going to incorporate this into the SCG, which if the predictions from the PED maintain, then we'll be able to accommodate that.
We also learned at spring budget about Innovation Zone,
Innovation
which
Zones.
has 40 million to CTE in the upcoming years. We got an email today that said we have an additional 50,000 that's coming to us directly. We have 2 sources of Perkins from federal and state that are about 70,000 apiece, that are continuous because we keep doing those applications. And at spring budget, I don't know about you guys, but every session I went into had something mentioned about CTE. And so I really feel like it's supported.
And I'd like to add that, you know, we talked a lot about, and it became reality, the investment, the $7 million investment into CTE career pathways has become reality. And you need to know that other districts have not been that intentional or that focused on these kind of things. I've heard even another district I won't name that we're struggling with how to spend the ESSER funds. We have not had an issue with how to spend that money. We've used it very intentionally for the students to build these career pathways, to buy the equipment for them. And out of that $7 million investment, we're only maybe surpassing about halfway of that, the money that we've encumbered for that. So all of these events and all these things that the students are attending, this is in my mind, this is just the beginning of what's yet to come, because we've shifted, our district has shifted to CTE programs. The state has shifted to CTE programs for the future. So this is a new world, and I think that I'm very proud of the way that everybody here has handled utilizing those funds for the students, and you're seeing the result of it when these students come forward.
Mr. President, I guess that was my major concern, because we tried to make both our tribes understand the big investment this district has made in that CTE, but there's always that worry that these big equipment are going to have to be replaced and or upgraded. And because they talked about upgrade when we went through the tour, whether we have that fund to replace some of that equipment or to upgrade, then I'm glad you're following through with the other vocational grants. But we can't let it go. We can't just say, okay, we ran out of money and now we can't buy a new machine. We've got to find alternative ways to keep this going so that we can invite the school kids back to our district so that they don't go somewhere else and our enrollment increases. And if this, this is just a small portion of the student population that's participating in CTE, we want to expand that even more, which is going to take more money and of course more replacement costs. So it's just that, we continue to have to move ahead and look for those other reserves that we can tap into even if it's just to set aside for future replacements. It's essential that we continue to look for funding, and that we are the driving force right now in New Mexico with this CTE. And so I still think that our tribes and other organizations should help invest. I mean, it's an investment in their children, in their members.
To keep them interested in moving forward in education, of course.
Yeah.
Continue.
SB 9 money can also help pay for that replacements. That's not part of this operational budget. When you get the final budget to review and approve, you'll see what we anticipate for SB 9 and capital outlay money that's coming in from the state as well. That will help pay for that. Very good point. I'm going to point you to one more item, and that's a line 29, which is special services ancillary. This money, just based on the activity, the demand, and the lack of services available right now for special education, we thought it was prudent to address all of the concerns of the community and those who have brought litigation and those other areas to shore up special education by expanding the services. For example, there are CTE programs for the frail and special ed students that we want to look at to implement as well. We thought that this would be an important investment to make in programmatic services and increasing the number of eligible students as we continue to look at all of the services that are provided or should be provided by special education services that either meet or exceed the needs of those called out by the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. So all in all, I would say that we have a number of programs where we have opportunity. When I spoke with the Secretary of Education, I asked him point blank, can you please tell me, out of all the money that's being allocated here, how much of this are you wanting or are you expecting that should be addressing Yazzie Martinez? Because there's no dictate, there's nothing that says out of $46 million, you need to allocate, X amount of dollars for addressing the issues that brought up in the Yazzie Martinez Act. And his response was, it's really up to the district, and there's all kinds of other money becoming available that's not part of our operating budget that we can't anticipate how much we would get, like as she mentioned about the enterprise zones or the innovation zone. There's also additional money coming from the PSCOC for capital that just like last year in I'm gonna say October or so, we received that $1.7 million for maintenance that just came out of the blue. They said, here you go, here's your allocation, you can use it for maintenance. And that was something we couldn't budget for. And so, K-12. And K-12 plus. So there's a lot more out there that we don't know what that is yet because the PED hasn't determined how much every school district will get. But for the purposes of the budget, for the operating budget, how we pay teachers and how we keep the lights on and all that, this is the one we want to go with. Adding the wind farm, $341,000 a year, money with that as well. Any questions?
I think one important thing is that the facets of that Yazzie Martinez is not gonna go away.
Nope.
They're going to be more deliberate in their question is how did you spend money or how did you attribute money to handle the requirements in the Yazzie Martinez? And we better make sure we have a plan to answer those directly so that we can say, well, we put this much into this and we put this, that way they can not go and leave us alone and let us continue to educate our kids, whether they're Yazzie Martinez or just regular students.
Yeah, I appreciate about this unit value and the amount of money coming in is it opens up a lot of opportunity for us to be creative and a lot of opportunity for us to be responsible with that, to address the special needs, to address the gifted, to address those at risk, to address those who are going hungry, all of those issues we now have in front of us, and we can start making a plan for each one of those that is going to make a difference in the lives of our students and be reflected not only in their scores at the end of a quarter or a semester or at the end of the year, but also what they do for the rest of their lives. That's the exciting part of this. And I can't believe I said I'm excited about putting a budget together.
thought when Mr. Perez said that we were going to an exciting part of the agenda, I thought he was talking about your presentation.
Very exciting.
No, you did a good job.
Thank you.
I think that we need to continue to fund these innovations that are occurring throughout our program. And I'm glad to see that we have more funds put into special education services. And there's probably unique, innovative ways in which we can provide the services to these students in order for them to achieve their aspirations and the parents' aspirations.
So can I share one thing with you, just from personal experience? I was a special ed student in elementary school. Because they consider, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they consider me gifted, they moved me up a grade, and that never happens in the middle of the year, right? So mistake number one on their part. But number two, I had 8 years of speech therapy in school, that every week I was 2 or 3 days in speech therapy. And I shared with Raina, in high school, I was voted the most talkative, and I don't understand how that happened, but I just wanted to share with you that someone who was bullied in elementary school, made fun of for the way I spoke, and also had gifting in other areas. My brother hated that because he was 11 months older than me, and we were in the same grade for the rest of our lives. But I think I would just be a perfect example, the poster child of someone who, when there are resources available and people identify what is needed for that particular student, right? Because I could have gone without speech therapy and I would have been, not be able to say my D's and T's and whatever, and then not having confidence to sit up here and talk to me. So that's how much of an impact special ed can make in a student.
I can tell you're very shy, so.
Yeah.
But one of the other aspects of special education is transitioning the students from high school into the world of work.
Yes.
And we know that there's a plan. We know that all the parents must be aware that it doesn't have to stop when they leave high school. That we need to commit our resources, our imagination as to how we're going to help them know what is available for them. We have far too many students in years gone by who are still at home, never get anywhere. And Laguna has had a real strong program for trying to transition kids for quite some time. And so I think that also is partly at ACAM. But we need to make sure that all the students who have special needs find a niche someplace. And that's what I would like to see us do, is to explore that whole area of transitioning and see what we can do to get them. Some of the stuff that we're talking about, there could be opportunities for them to participate. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera is going to Baltimore, Maryland to present on integrating our students with special needs into the CTE classroom. That's what they specifically asked him to present on. So I'm presenting on our curriculum development in regards to our CTE pathways, and that's what he is presenting on for Johns Hopkins University. That's what they noticed in his classroom coming here. So it's already in the works of how we're integrating into the classrooms. And so it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
So my plane tickets are gonna be.
Sure. Mr. President, to renew the success of the CT program that you just had this last weekend, is that some presentation you and PED, so they know that finally, hey, what's going on? I hope so. I mean, I want a big splash.
So whenever I do, actually, it goes through our stars. And so Steve Brown and I were just talking about it today. So anytime we have completers, any students that take 3 CTE courses in the same pathway, that's a completer, and that goes to the state, and we get kudos for that with our state report there and our application for CTE monies. Anytime we have students students that even participate in a CTSO like Skills USA or DECA or EPA or whatever it might be, we get points for that. Any of our students that do well like this, we get to report that as well. So we're working on putting that reporting into Synergy because we had it in PowerSchool and then it's
And anybody can look at that.
anybody can
You should also put it in our website.
We, Steve Brown is posting it, we're posting it, we also have science fair that happened last weekend, we're posting that, and you guys will hear about that in a second. We're blasting it far and wide.
That's it. That's all I'm
We're
here.
very, very proud, and like Mr. Pettis said, like our main, sense of pride with those kids was their behavior. It was awesome to hear
Yes, I
the
remember
front desk
that.
clerk say, your kids are so well behaved, thank you, it was awesome.
We should also include those in our recruitment efforts for the feeder schools so that they can actually see what they can engage in when they get to our schools.
Need to increase LA middle schools enrollment. I see this poster, flyer. What's it related to? How does it fit into the game plan of the district?
So Tissia is working on information session for our efforts to do the culturally responsive minds and our CLRE with our students, what it is, and dispelling some myths. And so she has the presenters from the culturally responsive minds here to help with the parent session and question and answers. And so that information has gone out to IPAC, to all of our stakeholder groups, to everyone else involved so that we can meet next week to help the public to understand what we're doing with CLRE.
I want to encourage us to persuade our staff to participate in this, because the more you know, the less you fear. And so that's important for the community as well as our staff. We all need to remind them, what is this? You know, because we need to always know that, and this is really critical. Okay. Oh, I would like to, never mind, it'll be next on the agenda. Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, before we move on to the next topic, I do really need to acknowledge in my days of reflection here. I need to tell you that I worked through, in some more than several districts, and worked with several CEOs or CFOs and business finance directors. And I have to tell you that this is the most organized and the most user-friendly type of information that I think you'll ever see in finance. So kudos to you, Steve. I think you did a wonderful job.
High fives.
I can remember years when I was first on the board, when they were always asking for us to have, what is it? Transparency. Oh, that was a biggie back.
What are you doing with the money? Show us the money.
And a lot of it, you've made it simpler for them to understand. What we used to give them before was a more like web of budgetary thing, and without them wanting to admit they couldn't understand what that
Budget
was.
speak.
So this is more understandable for them, and there shouldn't be any more complaints about financial transparency. I hope not, anyway.
Well,
Except for the CLCC or whatever they're called.
at some point, we need to be much more informed about that equity issue and how it, the next iteration of the budget. So when we're talking about addressing needs, particularly with line 15, and what that's all about. I think even some of the other lines are kind of cross-cutting when it comes to equity and trying to address critical needs of kids, including special education. You gotta have a way to help the board to visualize how we distribute resources towards those who have needs. And that's probably another kind. And I'm confident in your ability to create visuals for us to see all of that. Mr. Pettis.
Mr. President, Board, the final presentation is a discussion regarding clarifications on issues raised and implied within a media article related to LFC report and hearing and board's future focus.
Okay, and I'll do this, and I've taken up on myself I felt that it was in the best interest of the district to, and especially the board, to make sure the public is clear on what the board is all about and where the board is going, and to assure the public that we are committed to serving the community well. And notwithstanding voices otherwise, we still must be the one to do the job, to do the work that is necessary, the things that we're doing day in, day out, and all these meetings we do. We spend serious time for the last, ever since you've been on there, you know, this business. And also celebrations. And so what I'm going to do is to read this to you so that we need to, I'm proposing that we act on it. The GCCS administration and the local school board have found it necessary to follow up on the recent article published April 12, 2023 in the Cibola Citizen titled Legislative Report Highlights Issues at GCCS. We are disappointed that wait a minute. This is not the one.
Give me that one back, that's one Mr. Pettis.
Do you want everyone to have one? Do
Yeah, this one,
you want everyone to have one?
yes. Do you have a copy? You can make copies for the others if you have time. On April 12, 2023, the Cibola Citizen published an article regarding the Grand Cibola County Schools. The source of the Citizen report appears to be parts of an evaluation report on Central Consolidated School District and on Grand Cibola County Schools prepared for the Legislative Finance Committee. And the subheading here, the first subheading is the LFC report and Superintendent Pettis' retirement. At the beginning of the news article, the Citizen attempted to connect the findings of the LFC report to the retirement of Superintendent Max Pettis announced in April 2023, which is this, anyway, yeah. Before that announcement of retirement, the Board of Education completed its annual performance evaluation of Mr. Pettis based on a year-long examination of a set of performance categories in his performance evaluation plan. The board reviewed a volume of performance information compiled over the year, and the board gave Mr. Pettis a strong performance rating. That evaluation could have led to continued employment as superintendent. However, Mr. Pettis submitted his resignation for personal reasons. Mr. Pettis' evaluation is confidential, as it is for all school district personnel. GCCS selection for an LFC audit. Last fall, the evaluation unit of the Legislative Finance Committee informed GCCS that out of 89 school districts, Grand Cibola County School and Central Consolidated School District had been selected for an LFC evaluation. GCCS did not fully understand the justification for our selection. This was unexpected, as the 89 school districts are not regularly evaluated by the LFC. But then chair of the LFC was connected with this region and may have had some relatives associated and employed with the district. And GCCS welcomed the on-site visit of the LFC evaluation staff and provided access to all information and persons to be interviewed. The LFC staff was cordial and very professional. Now, this is just a brief overview of the LFC report. I do provide the link if anybody desires to read the actual report, which is probably more appropriate for a person. Rather than referring to the Cibola Citizens article, it's more accurate for the board to clarify its issues by examining the actual LFC evaluation report. This examination will only summarize or highlight certain aspects of the report due to its length. Individuals interested in the original report can go to the LFC website. The evaluation report has categorized its findings in 3 areas. The first, the LFC said that districts need stronger instruction, deeper engagement, and stable leadership to boost low achievement. That is the first major conclusion and recommendation. The second was that revenue growth outpaces, they said that revenue growth outpaces spending, contributing to a high cash balance, yet enrollment drops require workforce efficiencies. That is their second conclusion or finding about the district. Third one was that governance and leadership should focus on planning, stability, and training to improve outcomes and safety. The actual findings of the evaluation discussed a different and disconnected set of observations that form the basis of the 3 recommendations listed above. This statement that I'm reading tonight cannot adequately list and address the various findings of the evaluation report. That would take too long and not necessary at this point. The evaluation report focuses on issues involving comparisons of funding versus outcomes, strategic decision-making, student safety and sexual abuse, revenue growth, which we had a good presentation on tonight. Low achievement in reading and math, we know that, have known it for a long time. Low graduation rates and chronic absenteeism also. We're struggling with that. And throughout the state, so the country. Mobility of leadership, that has to do with turnover rates of superintendents and principals and so forth. And we've only had, we've been here for a few years. And so we don't have that kind of mobility in our superintendency.
The average is.
Yeah, 2 years, that is what it says. Yeah. We did have some change in principalships, but there was purposes behind those things. Cash balances, there you go, Mr. Maldonado. Cash balances was an issue. And they pointed out that we should not have as much cash balance as we have. That common sense would make you think that if you get money in one school year, you ought to spend it in that school year. That can hold true, except that the complexity of funding causes us not to get monies at the same time. And there's a lot of more complexity to it. We can always explain to the public. Board training deficiencies, that we must acknowledge, board. We're not attending the training as we need to, and we need to do a better job of that. We also will continue to improve those as individuals. The public hearing by the legislature, there were some others that were in the report, but I did not want to go through those things. The public hearing by the Legislative Finance Committee was held on January 16, 2013, in which time Mr. Perez, district staff, and board members provided a response to the findings of the LFC evaluation team. Questions were asked by LFC committee members. And since that time, though, no communication has been received by the school district from the LFC. Ordinarily, the LFC has a follow-up where they will ask you, what have you done to respond to our findings? And that has not occurred. Okay. The school district does not agree with several of the observations, findings, and recommendations of the LFC. A review of the school district response will reveal our differences. Upon our own examination of the same data sources, there is more positive evidence of student performance. COVID impacts. The Cibola Citizen and the LFC did not fully explore the impact COVID had upon every aspect of school district's operations. During the years when the school district suffered and coped with the anguish of families, it too found its own staff being taxed to the limit. Millions of dollars were spent to prevent the spread of the virus to just make the schools safe for occupancy by staff and students. Funds provided for technology to provide remote and hybrid learning were allocated just so students could resume instruction. This was attempted with varying degrees of success due to the obstacles experienced during home settings and the availability of internet resources. Tribes were also forced to restrict movement in order to protect their small populace. Reduced lesson engagement, lower enrollment, distance learning, social emotional challenges, and actual sickness and death contributed to losses of learning. And these factors were not even mentioned in the LFC report or the news article to that extent. Those were hard years, and we're still trying to recover. Student safety, the incident of a staff member having an inappropriate relationship with a student mentioned in the LFC report had been much published in the school district community. While discussed at the hearing before the LFC, there were no levels of screening by any entity that would have excluded an active state police officer from being an assistant coach. You would think that a state police officer would have qualified and would have been okay to be teaching our kids. However, the school district is committed to further training for students, staff, and parents to mitigate the efforts of those who would clandestinely, how to say it?
Yeah.
Clandestinely.
My wife would have told me that. Clandestinely use these schools to access children. Additionally, security for the school district will continue to be a part of the future board actions. We will always be watching out for that. That is something that is absolutely critical. Future study of LFC findings. The board understood the general importance of the LFC evaluation. The findings of the LFC evaluation will be viewed by the board and by the incoming superintendent. Ordinarily, the LFC provided a follow-up to their report with the school district. That did not occur, and the leadership and makeup of the LFC was changed soon after the conclusion of the LFC hearing with the two school districts. The board and the superintendent are therefore proceeding independently on our own analyses of what each considers to be appropriate actions to be taken in the coming months and years. That is our fiscal and programmatic responsibility to the communities of the school district. That's our job. That's our business. We will address those things. We'll take the heat. Board celebration of school success. The LFC downplayed the celebration of school successes, suggesting, Raina, that we focus on monitoring and evaluating results. However, the board will continue to celebrate successes and will continue to monitor student progress, school finances, and the overall progress of the school district made in the furtherance of its strategic plan. A review of recent board agendas will reflect that commitment. Advances in the education of Grand Cibola County Schools, GCCS strategic plan. The board, staff, and stakeholder groups developed a long-range strategic plan. I can't say that word. Strategic. Got it? Strategic, see, did it again. Strategic plan fully recognizing the historical and continuing gaps in underachievement by our at-risk populations. Our strategic plan shall also be responsive to the Ozzie Martinez remedies that will guide budgetary and programmatic decisions, thereby assuring all students meet their full potential regardless of race, ethnicity, income, or background. That's who we are. That's what we're going to do. LFC pointed this out in its report, but that is absent from the article, and this is what they said. Grant has a strategic plan for 2022 through 2025 with long-term goals, student achievement, and financial data and timelines. A practice similar to performance-based budgeting, which is what they want us to do. The Grant School Board uses a strategic plan and monitoring tool to establish goals and track progress. This is a promising step toward performance-based budgeting, and the district could enhance its monitoring tool to inform budget priorities. The strategic plan has established 4 goals. Foster student excellence and academic achievement with a curriculum that recognizes our cultural diversity. Number 2, instill excellence in teaching and leadership. Number 3, create a school climate and environment that is safe, supportive, inclusive, and respectful. 4, engage our diverse families and communities in student success. From those goals arose plans of action that encompass all the areas which the LFC evaluation report has identified as our shortcomings, which had already been identified by the board in administration reports and within the strategic plan. In other words, we know that there are shortcomings. We know the work is hard, and we accept that. The school district goals and action plans are dynamic and can be reset as the data dictates. Unlike the LFC, the board has this mandate for the school district every time it meets. In addition, the school district schools develop site-based improvement plans called DASH plans that focus on high-impact actions for each school. Alignment with the strategic plan is also integral to a systems approach, where all arrows are pointing in the same direction. And Max, you and I have talked about that day one. The district learning, then it's another section. The district learning plan, PLCS, and the latest in technological innovation. The district learning plan and the professional learning communities teams were brought to the school district by Mr. Perez, his administrative staff, and other resources. It is the most profound example of system-wide change to instruction. The board has seen visual evidence of how this collaborative process in design, the board has seen visual evidence of how this collaborative process in designing lessons with a specific focus on student work has cracked open the doors of individual instruction to team-based support for each teacher willing to participate. Weekly PLC meetings, if done right, will increase the learning results for the students, all students. There are many significant investments being made on behalf of our students and community. These include investments in new programs, early warning systems, student success staff, tutoring and intervention strategies for students, dramatic improvements in infrastructure, buildings, technology, and safety. During these past difficult years, we have improved our facilities and have new schools on track for construction. New and up-to-date sports facilities have been constructed with the support of community and legislative leadership. Advances in CTE have found classrooms being equipped with high technology and robotics that are astounding for a small rural school district as GCCS. These investments are already yielding powerful and significant increases in student test scores, attendance rates, and employee retention. While the LFC report noted that the school district held a cash balance, at the hearing before the LFC was provided with information that all monies being held have been assigned for expenditure to support the school district's programs and facilities, all necessary for student success. In other words, we weren't putting it on the top shelf in the coffee can waiting for a rainy day. It is going to be used. The expenditures are more valuable now to support student success as the expenditures associated with COVID are now limited or minimal, which is what Mr. Malamo was just pointing out. The focus can return to advancing in-person instruction and providing other direct supports for students, such as tutoring, additional instructional time, and other programs. These advances demonstrate a high level of commitment to our students and community and overshadow any criticisms that paint the school district in a negative light. We understand the stakes are high and that we should always expect scrutiny and challenges to our work. With our diverse communities whose needs are great, we welcome continued support of our staff's efforts. The Grants to Boulder County Schools remains committed to continuing on the path toward providing our students with the highest quality of education in the state. As a board, we are exceptionally proud of the progress being made by our students, and we stand committed to building on the good work started during the past 4 years. The new superintendent must be equally committed to furthering this progress already made and applying his or her expertise to continue on with the school district's strategic plan. End of the presentation. This is our public statement to ourselves and to the public. It's basically a statement to the public. We need to have the public know that that we always will understand when criticism and challenges, and that's important. high stakes for their children, for this community. And we've said this for a long time. The county is in need of quality education, with outstanding high school graduates, and that's our responsibility. That's why we're here. And we wanted to not belabor the point on the article, but focus on the positive stuff and what we are and what we do, because that's how we work together and we'll continue to work together. And I wanted to, this took a little while to draft, but I felt it is important for us to take a constructive, positive approach to addressing the work that we do in light of what the public is saying or has heard.
If I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, weren't we identified as one of the few school districts that had a strategic plan at that meeting?
Yeah.
There were, we were a minority, because I know Central didn't have one, they were just working on it, but we've had ours for a number of years. And if I remember, one of the committee members said that we were one of the few districts that had established a strategic plan long before it was even required or asked for.
Yes.
I think it's important to note that we not only have a strategic plan, but we have one that's active. We have one that we monitor and follow and use it to guide us.
And we made sure at the beginning that we made it a living and breathing document. I think this is okay, but you need to make some grammatical corrections. Yeah, where it says that paint, you got that.
Oh, duly noted. I saw that. But you should have seen the first time around. I had help at home.
There's some others too, I didn't
but,
circle them.
I know you're an English teacher. Don't do that to me.
Can I make a statement?
Mr. Pettis.
Mr. President, Board, I have to say this. I think, we always invite, we're used to criticism, that's part of the job. But we always invite audits, we invite evaluations of the work that we do, because we believe that that's what makes us better. I don't think anybody can go without getting their work scrutinized, and you have to evaluate that, analyze it, and then get better by that kind of input. In fact, in our audit, when we're first coming in, made it a point to find the strictest auditors we could possibly find for our financial audits. That's the Manning and Company. And they're well known across the state as being the strictest. So we intentionally went to find the strictest evaluator for our work. We don't have a problem with that. I think, but I have to say is, and I definitely don't want to take any, put a shadow on anything that's already been said, because I'm really proud of the work that's been done also with the team here for the last 4 years. But with the LFC audit, as you mentioned, 1 out of 89 districts, and the timing of the report on the grants paper, it just makes a person suspect of the motive, the timing. With both of these, they're both, in both presentations of the information have led to misleading conclusions. For example, I'm leaving because of this information, which is absolutely not untrue. So I just need to tell you that I believe that I question the motive for the process, as I question the timing. There's missing information, it just didn't make it clear that there's 2 districts involved in this audit. A lot of these things are out of our control. A lot of criticisms are on the laws of the state that needed to be, we can't, we don't have the authority in our community to change the state law. So there's many, and I won't go point to point. We have gone point to point when we went and presented to the LFC. But there's just not a comfortable way to look at this, and the fact that I get suspect of the motive behind it and the timing of all of these efforts. So I need to say that publicly. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope that the statement speaks for us. Okay, because the board must undertake its duties to sustain a strong leadership role as a board in addressing these needs, especially at this time when we are going to be selecting the new superintendent who will continue with our work. As I said at the end, it's sustained, must be sustained. Yeah, we have a strategic plan that that is going to help us examine all areas of criticism or all areas of need. We will use that as a basis for creating a dynamic approach to addressing needs. So that's what I see. I felt that it was best to respond in this fashion. We welcome the citizen or any other media to be a part of our meetings, and any public person who wants to. We think we have it on the, is it on YouTube? Yeah. And we will still encourage people to stay informed, to work with their schools, and encourage the kids to stay focused on their schoolwork. We've got a few more weeks left, and it's going to be a busy month or more that we're going to address these things. Anybody else wish to make any comments?
I just find it very sad that one of the things that they expounded on was the fact that we celebrate our student successes too much. I mean, to me, that's what school districts are all about. And there was one point, if I remember, the three auditors even admitted that there were some things that they made comments of where they were unsure of the processes on how to do it. And they admittedly said that, but that was never brought to light. And I don't know, I just think that, I don't read the news, I don't read that newspaper. So really, I didn't even know.
I didn't hear you.
Emily, yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will move forward, and let's continue with the board agenda. Mr. Pettis.
Yeah, Mr. President, Board, the action item this evening is a consideration to approve the clarifying statement on issues raised in a media article on LFC report and hearing, and the board's focus.
Is there a motion to approve a clarifying statement as written, as stated?
Mr. President, do you, I like the way it's written. Ms. Daly says that tweaking needs to be done.
With,
I will approve.
with minor
this
editing.
with the minor corrections through the vice chair.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made by Bob Hayes and seconded by Emily Daly to approve the statement as presented with minor editing. Roll call?
Emily Daly,
Yes.
Robert Hayes.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Garner Scramble.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, consent agenda.
Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by, motion made by Emily Daly, seconded by Ron Ortiz to approve the consent agenda. Roll call?
Emily Daly. Yes. Robert Hayes.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Garner Scramble.
Yes, motion carries. Mr. Pettis,
Yes,
superintendent's
sir.
report.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, just quickly, because we spoke about it a little bit, Mr. Maldonado talked about the funding of the two resource officers that's in the budget. We're just doing the final tweaks on the MOU so that we can get that process up and rolling. Our attorney is looking at the final edits on using the cameras and how that ties to FERPA. So that's coming. I hope that we'll have that all finalized in the next week. And we have SRO at Laguna now, who's on board, so. We've been provided, I don't remember the name offhand, do anybody recall? So, he's, on board. We're just looking forward to have a meeting with the chief to agree on some of the, protocols and have a, mutual SOP for that, officer, so that's up and going. Just need to line out the details on it, so we should have very shortly a total of 3 SROs, Grants High School, Salmitos, and 1 at Laguna. So that's what I have on the SROs. And then calendar update, we had to do a final, hopefully the final tweak on the final calendar tweak. It wasn't major, so we didn't believe it needed board approval, but we did want to make you aware of.
What is it?
The piece here, Mr. Mark, Dr. Martin.
There were 3 changes to the one that was approved April 4th, the board meeting on April 4th. One is the start date of pre-K. So along with HB 130, they also increased the pre-K instructional time to 1080 from 990. And so to be able to comply with that requirement, we needed to start pre-K earlier. Instead of the start date being August 17th, it will now be August 14th. So we moved the start date to comply with the increase in instructional hours. And then when we were at the spring budget workshop, so we Jennifer asked about our 2 teacher work days, and they did say that those can be considered as professional work days because the teachers are at work during those times anyway. And so instead of our instructional days being 181, it went up to 183, which in turn increased the instructional hours for grades K through 6 to 1155.09 from 1147.09. So those are the changes. On the days on the calendar itself, the only change was the start date for pre-K from August 17th to August 14th. And then the minor changes at the side of the calendar, stating the total number of instructional hours for grades K through 6.
Comments? Questions?
Is this the last one?
I do hope so. Sir. After the budget summit, I don't know if there are any changes that will.
Final version.
Final.
No, Albuquerque has had a lot of controversy. Why are we having any controversy here?
Do the changes in the date affect the salaries or
Oh,
budget? No,
no, ma'am. It didn't affect any contracts. And then it actually the most recent changes actually put us on put us in a better position because now we're about 2 days, we're 2 days above of the 1140 requirement of HB 130. So we did allot 3 potential snow day makeup days. But now we're actually more than 14 hours.
More than the minimum.
More than the minimum, at least 14 hours above.
So another thing we need to rectify is, what's this, Max? Is that we need to start school a half an hour later.
That'll be next year.
And I see these poor darlings in front of my house, it's dark, cold, snow, winter, polar bears are, also wearing their fur coats. It's late. I know there's still concerns about from parents saying that they get up early. And they get up early, and they're standing out there waiting for the buses. So you can solve, right?
Yes.
Half an hour earlier, later?
Yeah, I mean, Albuquerque is doing it right now. But, there's research also that shows that high school students really need to sleep in the morning.
I'm being sort of facetious, but is there any serious thinking that we ought to have on that? Most of our kids, I don't know what to say, a large number of our kids ride the bus. And Blue Water is, Baca in that area is a long ways. And they have the bus pickup right there by the chapter house. Buses don't go into the interior of that area. So that means that they either walk, but more than likely they'll be driven about a mile or so from that to the pickup place.
I think starting later means ending later, and
Yeah.
you're gonna get about a 50-50 vote on that, I'm sure.
Well, what drives a lot of this is sports.
Sure.
And that's a concern nevertheless. You got more kids who are riding buses than are participating in sports. And just sure hate to see kids getting up so early. And now we're expanding we're modifying the calendar.
No. What programs they ask us to do,
Okay, on the, as you leave, you can make that change.
Mandate that.
And leave before they can get you.
Wherever.
My parents don't.
Be a good note to leave on.
we take it under advisement.
Okay, announcements, you see all of that, we have the, Mr. Pettis, isn't there, or Rena, isn't there a native, ceremony? The,
Like a
roping?
stone,
The roping and the stalls.
Awarding of stones,
Yeah,
May 9th.
it doesn't show up on our calendar. So, explain what that, what that involves.
So on May 9th, 6:00 PM at the PAC, the senior, Native American seniors from the Pueblo Vacuma, Pueblo Laguna and Navajo Nation will be awarded stoles from their tribal administrations. So this does not take the place of any graduation ceremony. It's basically the tribal administrations, tribal leaders awarding their graduates stoles that they had made to show their to reward them for the accomplishment that they were able to achieve.
Okay. And this,
Will they wear that at graduation, during graduation?
And they'll wear those during graduation
okay, where and when?
at the
Performing Arts Center.
performing arts
Back here in GHS campus.
For both schools?
There gonna be snacks?
No food allowed in the package.
No food allowed.
I know who would get on my case if I brought something in. Okay,
And both schools?
all three tribes?
Yep, for Laguna Acoma graduates, Grants High School graduates, as well as early college high school graduates,
Okay,
Native Americans.
Oh. All right. Mr. President, we need to reflect the 24th, the day after the interviews on the 23rd as a day on the calendar.
Well, I did talk to Mr. Sullivan and Linda, and they said that they didn't want to put it on yet, just because.
I'd rather see it than not see it. I don't know if I wanna be here for 6 hours that day and be sleeping in my chair trying to pick a new superintendent.
Whoever's
Okay.
standing.
We'll have you standing up. Good.
Did you get the impression that, that we may end up on the 24th being there for a little bit longer than that?
Yes, sir.
It sounded like it was gonna be during the day, am I correct? See, I don't think you were aware of that. You may lose some money that day, and so, okay, I will need clarification on that. I thought it was gonna be all in the evening at the normal time, 5:30 at night.
That evening,
That
it'll be
evening,
like a
I thought
regular
it was.
special board
But
meeting.
we'll talk some more to him about that. I'm not sure I can. Anyway, motion to adjourn. A motion made by Emily Hunt, seconded by Ron Ortiz to adjourn. All those, roll call.
Elaine Daly,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes, motion carries. That, something.
8:05.
Okay. Thank you, guys.